Afternoon out there, shopkeepers and do-it-yourselfers. Working on a 2012 Dodge Durango Crew all-wheel drive that was making a lot of popping in the front end when you would turn right or left. And I really thought it was in the front end, and I did wind up replacing this front CV shaft because you can see the boot was split and it was throwing grease all over the brake caliper and the wheel, but that did not cure it. I checked the oil in the front end, the differential. There's the drain plug, and right there's the fill plug. I've got to put it back in, but I've got to refill it with fluid. It takes 1 quart of 75 W90 synthetic, so I need to get some new and put in there. It only had a half a quart in it, but that was not the problem. And I drained the oil out of the transfer case. There's supposed to be a half a quart in it. I got about 1/4 of a cup, and that's when I decided that the problem was back here. I don't know, I think there you can see the chain in there. Let's see. Let me I don't know. I've got the end of that wrench, Allen wrench, against the bottom of the chain. Look how much movement it's got in it. It's about 1.5 inches of slack, and that's enough to let that chain slip over the gear. So it's binding up in here. But this transfer case has been replaced 8/22/17. I'm sure that's junkyard markings. And it's been apart. I know that because the part of the bolts here were different and missing and weren't put in all the way. So we're going to take this off. And to do that, obviously, there's 6. They should be 8mm or 5/16 Allen head bolts that go in there, and they're all the same length. And there's 6 Allen head bolts that go in the front shaft, the rear joint of the front shaft. I've got them out, and I've found it. Them joints are kind of hard to get out of that because they go inside of a recess here. They sit inside of a recess. You can see there, that shiny part there. It goes in there about 3/16 of an inch. Kind of a job to get out of there. But anyway, the back has 8 bolts, and they're 8mm or 5/16, whatever you want to use. That goes around there, and these are actually like a CV joint. They got little bearings in there. I'll show you here in a minute, but got that out, got it loose, and you got to take the carrier bearing out. There's a little heat shield here. Goes over right there. 2 10mm nuts. Take that off, and then you got there's 2 bolts. Let's see, hang on a minute. What I do with them bolts? Here they are. That holds the carrier bearing in, and your 10mm nut goes on that, and that's what holds the heat shield on. Then it takes a deep well 15mm socket, and to get that out, you got to be careful because they didn't want to come out because it's dry and rusty. So in the crevice of the body where that's welded there, I used my spray lube and run it in there pretty heavy and let it run down on top of those threads. So take that off, drop it down, take your hammer and knock your joint loose, And then you can slide your rear drive shaft rearward so you can get the transfer case out. Then I've got a screw jack holding the transmission up, and we'll take this rear cross member, take it all out. I've already got the two 15mm nuts off the bottom of the transfer case transmission mount, and see, we're missing a bolt there. They didn't put that in, but that's a 16mm. These are all 16mm, so that one ain't even tight. Wow. Anyway, we'll get them, and this bracket right here, it's got 3 16mm bolts up in there. We're gonna have to get them, and on the passenger side, 3 more up there. So let's get them out and take that down. So I took that down as an assembly. Just left all that stuff bolted on. I have to find a new bolt to put in there. Put it together right or don't put it together. Hey, look, something about this exhaust support bracket. That wasn't put in right, or got the wrong bolt. Probably as a shoulder bolt or something that went in there. Anyway, so we'll get that off. And we've got these bolts out of that yoke, but I need to knock that loose, and be careful because this is a piece of metal that goes over that. You don't want to damage it, tear it all up, get it mangled. So we'll work on getting those two things off. Okay, got the exhaust bracket off. The way I've always done things, I put my parts up there and put the bolts kind of where, you know, so things are together and you know where stuff goes. You know, I got that off, and the way I'm going to get this yoke to come apart, I'll use a ball peen hammer and go between those two pieces, and I'll hold this hammer here, and then I'll strike that hammer right there with another hammer to knock that joint out of the yoke. And see, I hit it on this side, then I came over here and hit it, and I came back there and hit it again, and there it come out. So I did not strike this metal little tin cover and do any damage to it. And let's see, I started making this video and my phone jacked up and I lost it. I don't know that I covered this part of it back here. But you got to take the rear drive shaft off, obviously. And so there's 8 5/16 8mm Torx or Allen head bolts, and they're all the same length. Go around that, and you can see this has also got the metal cover on it, and it was kind of a chore to get it out of there too. But so you take them 8 bolts out, and then your carrier bearing. There's a heat shield goes over there. 2 10mm nuts that secured that, and they went on this stud bolt. It went in those 2 holes. There's a hole on both sides, and because they was pretty dry and didn't want to come out, I stuck the jet nozzle up there inside that little hole and let that lubricant run down on top of the bolt in there, like right in there. And I don't know where my can of lube is. There it is. I like to use this stuff. They're not a sponsor, nobody is, but if they send me a check, I'll be happy to cash it. So I do like that, spray it in there pretty good, and it run down and lubricated those threads. and they come out. Drop that carrier bearing down, and that gave it enough slack. I could get the rear joint to pop out of the differential, and when I got the front shaft out, then I let the whole thing slide back. Now to get that joint out, that would be the front joint of the rear shaft, I couldn't get it out because that vibration dampener was in the way, and I couldn't strike the joint. So to remove that, I just used an E12 on a 3-inch extension, and let's see, where's in here? These bolts, and what are they, 1 inch or 3/4 inch Torx head bolts. When I got them bolts out, then I just slid that back and let it set on the shaft, because the shaft was still attached to the yoke. And then I was able to put my ball peen hammer on there like I did with up here, and strike it and come over this way and that way, and then it came out. Going back together, I won't need to do it that way. I can go ahead and put the collar on and then slide the shaft in. But you definitely don't want to forget to put that dampener back on before you put the shaft on, or it's probably going to shake you out of the truck. This piece is pretty heavy. I would say that thing weighs close to 10 pounds. It's pretty heavy. Anyway, let's see if we can let this down just a little bit, give us a little bit more. Yeah, it's coming down a little bit. And when you use a jack or anything on your transmission pan, use a block of wood to spread the load out so you don't damage your oil pan. And that, well, it's sheet metal. I thought it was cast, but it's stamped steel, so you don't want to cave it in, because there might be gizmos in there that if you bend the pan, it might interfere with the movement or operation of whatever components are in there. We don't want to do that, so we use a block of wood to spread that load out, keep it from doing any damage. So then we've got I don't know, probably half a dozen, maybe a dozen bolts. Looks like you're those E12. Let's see, there we go. Yeah, they're E12 all the way around. Let's see, I don't know how many we got. 3 on this side. Looks like 3 or 4 more on that side, maybe 1 on top. So let me get them out. There's 8 of those bolts. I don't know whether about 1.5 inches long. They're all the same length. And I left 1 in the bottom. Doesn't matter. Just leave 1. One that's easily accessible till you get all the others out. And the 2 up on the top, I used my air ratchet with a 3/8 swivel and the E12 socket on there. Went up in there like that and got it. They weren't terribly tight. They were as tight as they should be. But so I've got 7 of them out. Just got that 1 left, and so I'll set my phone down. I'll hold this with 1 hand and take the other bolt out, and then I'll get the transfer case down. I don't know that it'll hang up there by itself. There's the transmission extension housing, and we got it all out. And knowing what I know about changing transmissions, we want to make sure that there's 2 dowel pins, and so they're lined by that, not by the bolts. So we know that we've got those 2 in there. We'll check our replacement unit and see if they have dowel pins or not. Might have to take these 2 out, I don't know. But I'll take my little Scotch pad and clean that up. There is no gasket here, but I just want to make sure that it gets a good mating. And there's the old transfer case. I really don't see any exterior damage, but we'll probably take it apart and see what we see anyway. Okay, right off the bat, we can see that there are no dowel pins in the new case, so we don't have to worry about that. And let's see, let's roll this over. Okay, I shined that up. That doesn't seal anything, but it just, you know, just the right thing to do. Also used a little bit of that brake caliper slide pin lubricant. You can see there in that spline, just to give it a little bit of slip. I put a little bit there on that shaft too, on the spline, and just kind of seemed like the right thing to do. So I set this down and put that up there. That transfer case only weighs maybe about 20 pounds. By the time you put 80 weight gear oil in it, it'll weigh 100 pounds, right? Okay, got all 8 of them tight. When you set it up on that spline, just kind of rock it back and forth, and it'll slide up in there. And then you hit your dowel pins, and it's gonna hold you back about 3/16 of an inch, because those dowel pins fit in there kind of snug. It won't just slap right up in there. So when you put before you turn it loose, put 1 or 2 bolts in it to hold it, so you can turn it loose and get the other 6 bolts in there, or 7. There's a total of 8. And when you tighten them up, don't cram one down and then go to the next one. Tighten one a little bit and draw up about half your distance. Then go to the other side and draw it up and watch your gap as it closes in. Make sure it's coming in even all the way around. And once you've got it contacted or fully seated, then you can go around and start tightening them up. I don't know what the torque spec is. German, Gudentight. It's just a 5/16 bolt. The shank, you know, they're not head bolts, and they're just going into a cast aluminum. So I don't know what the number would be. 40, 50, probably somewhere around 35, 40 foot-pounds, but just good and tight, you know, dadgummit. Don't get out your 1/2 inch impact and pound them down. And of course, this didn't have any oil in it. We'll get it filled up with the correct oil. And this is going to be a little snug getting in, but you just kind of wiggle it and it'll go in place. And start all your bolts before you tighten them down. And I believe the accurate torque spec on those, on your drive shaft yokes, is Gudentight. And then we'll go ahead and I think I'll put them bolts in before I put the cross member in. So let me do that. Well, I went to put my exhaust bracket on, and I see they machined those holes, but there aren't any threads in there. So I've got to get a tap some threads in there so I can bolt that on. And then I went ahead and put the vibration dampener on, and it says this side down. So you want to make sure you get that on there right. I don't really know what the difference is, but I didn't look into that, but it's clear that this side down. Got all the rear cross member bolts back in and tight, those 3 there. Put that back in tight. Transmission mount bolt nuts tight. Found a bolt and put in there. It's tight. That one's tight. Those 2 are tight. And then, dadgummit, that's a hell of a magnet. I don't know if you can see them. Yeah, those 3 bolts up there are tight. And obviously I tightened that rear yoke on the front drive shaft. I can go ahead and slide the drive shaft forward, get it up in here and get those 6 bolts put in. Okay, I got the rear joint in. I got to get 2 more bolts in it, but I'm going to start it up and I'll back it up, bring them down here to the bottom, and I'll get them in because the exhaust is kind of in the way. Just make it a little easier. And also leave your carrier bearing unfastened, and that gives you a little bit more room at the top to work on getting your bolts in. And now we'll put the carrier bearing in. I think I showed you I got the front end, but I got to get 2 new bolts because they ruined 2 of them, and one of them is a Torx bit. It's not supposed to be. So get these bolts in and get that heat shield on. Now I lubricated those threads. The nut, which is welded to the body there, and the bolt, so I wouldn't have any problem with them going in, breaking off. Thing probably won't be coming back apart again, but if it does, hopefully it'll come apart and not break. So we'll get the heat shield on. Okay, then the heat shield's on. All I gotta do is find me a tap those 2 bolts. I think I ought to tap them standard or metric. That'll learn somebody, won't it? These 2 bolt holes there, they're not tapped either. I don't know what they would be for. Because there's exhaust on this side too. I don't know. It didn't have but just the 1 bracket on there. I'll tap them out. What would that be? 10 125 or something like that metric for that bolt. I don't know what size thread size that is. I can't talk. And anyway, it's all in there. Just get a couple of bolts for the front and rear yoke. I'll back it up. I'll get the top 2 bolts in and get new oil for the transfer case and the front and rear differential. I believe they all 3 take 75 W90 synthetic, but I'll have to look into that for sure. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Share, like, and subscribe. Comment if you will.